Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw, it's Monday. On Mondays we do tier lists, and on Wednesdays we wear pink.
I saw Katie Heron wearing army pants and flip-flops, so I bought army pants and flip-flops.
This video is brought to you by Blizzard and Warcraft Rumble. That's right, Blizzard is sponsoring this video. Thank you so much to Blizzard. On my B tier, my second YouTube channel, I am actually doing a series of videos partnered with Blizzard about Warcraft Rumble. It is an amazing free-to-play game that you can download right now. If you haven't yet, you can get the link in my description or in my pinned comment down there. There's still room in my guild, the B tier, if you're looking to join a guild. I'm absolutely loving Rumble, and I'm so happy that they asked me to come on board and make some content with them. So please check it out, and thank you to Warcraft Rumble. We have a balance patch coming to Pokemon Unite very soon. How soon? I don't know, but I'm guessing it should be here this week. So this week we're gonna do one of my favorite tier lists, a Nerf and buff tier list, or a Burf tier list, or enough tier list. It's enough with some of these Pokemon. So we're going to talk about every Pokemon that could use a buff or nerf and how likely it is that we will see it in the coming patch. Let's take a look at our tiers here. We have our God tier, where I'm going to put one Pokemon. We're not friggin' Norse around here. We've only got one Pokemon in the God tier. This is going to be a Pokemon that either needs a buff or a nerf, and I just feel like it is the most pressing balance issue in the game. We've got our buff zone tier. This tier is for all the Pokemon that will need a buff and could definitely use one. We've got our small boofs tier. These are Pokemon that could have small boofs to I can't believe I named it that. I already like it too much. These are all Pokemon that could use small buffs to some of their moves. We have our B tier. Was just in a good mood. Now my day's ruined. Still got the B tier. This is where I'm going to put Pokemon that I don't think they're going to really touch at all. We have our Eevee exceptions tier. I'm going to put some Eevees in here because I think they could use some tweaks and they're not going to get them. We have our small nerfs tier, you get it. And then we have our Decidueye Memorial Nerf These Please tier. That's a pretty obvious tier. Please nerf these Pokemon. A tier that was named after Decidueye when Decidueye was bad. Decidueye is not that bad anymore anyway. And then we have our gray area tier that I'm going to get into here in a moment. Let's start. Metagross is right up here on my list. I'm going to put this into our B tier. It just recently got some buffs and I think Meta's doing really well. I don't think there's really anything they would need to touch on this Pokemon. It's doing well solo, it's doing well competitively. I think it's very strong, but not completely overpowered. Very solid Pokemon. We have Tyranitar. This is our Decidueye Memorial Nerf This Please tier. While I don't think this Pokemon is so profoundly broken that you can't win games without it, it is the meta dominant Pokemon and is one of the biggest pain points in the game right now. And when something is on everyone's mind and everyone hates it, you definitely want to tweak it. Let's see, Venusaur. Venusaur's like, I think the only thing I could see on Venusaur would be a small boof, maybe to the like Sludge Bomb set of its moves. I guess you could see like, you could see small buffs to some of the moves on this Pokemon and maybe a slight nerf on its Unite move, because its Unite move is actually like kind of crazy strong. I don't think they need to mess with Venusaur too much though. Goodra, on the other hand, I would really like to see buffs on. This is a tricky one to buff. It's a sustained tank, and it plays really well into unskilled players and not very well into skilled players. I would love to see this buffed. They could be slight tweaks, but I would like to see Goodra buffed. I think it would be a solid one. Duraludon. Duraludon's a weird one. So I would put Duraludon into the buff zone specifically because of Flash Cannon and also because its Unite move is like the most cancelable thing in the game, like even worse than Char. I could really see some buffs for Dura if they're kind of in that realm. Also, they could maybe, they tweaked Dragon Pulse a while back and I don't know if they needed to tweak it so hard, but it's weird because Dura's not bad. It's just like a lot. Where are the rest of my dudes? Where are we? Cinder. Where are you at? Greninja. Come here, buddy. I'll bring Decidueye up here to talk about it as well. Decidueye! Okay. So I do think a lot of our like auto attackers are in this weird spot. Cinder just got like it over the course of maybe the last 6 months or so. It kind of got like multiple waves of buffs. in general, all of the auto attackers they kind of need more of a slick spoon than they need individual buffs. Like, they need the item that makes them really insanely good. We just haven't really seen it, and the problem is the other items that are on them are too good, like Rapid Fire Scarf, Muscle Band, Scope Lens. Like, these things are so good that it's hard to even slot another item on. If I were to put Greninja, I'd maybe put Greninja into small booths. Cinderace, again, we just saw buffs on it, so I doubt it. And then same thing with Decidueye. We've kind of recently seen buffs. So, oh, and where's Dragapult? If I were to do anything to Dragapult, it would be small buffs, and it would be to the Dragon Dance build. I think Phantom Force is doing fine, but we could definitely see a change to the Dragon Dance moveset, and I don't think that would be weird at all. These Pokemon are all kind of like oddly positioned. The biggest reason I would want buffs for Dura, again, the Unite move. Like, if Cinderace's Unite move is not cancelable, why is Duraludon's? And the same thing with like Flash Cannon is just... yeah, it's Flash Cannon. Lapras. Lapras, I think, was over-nerfed a little while back. I don't think it's terrible, but I do think you could add a little bit of something to Lapras, and it wouldn't be crazy. Garchomp. Okay, I'm putting it in the buff zone specifically because of its ground build. I'm like, it's way, way, way overdue that they do something with Earthquake and Dig. So I think Garchomp could use this. Urshifu as well. Water Urshifu, big time buff. I think this thing is just tragic right now. It's one of the most tragic Pokemon in the game. Yes, you can win with it. You can win with anything in this game. I do think Urshifu was over-nerfed. I think for sure. Okay. Let's get our EX Pokemon out here, because I see Miraidon now, and I guess it's time to start talking about these, because this is a interesting conversation, I think, the EX Pokemon in the game. They have their own classification, which essentially means that they are designed to be more powerful than the rest of the Pokemon in the game. We actually know this. This is something that they talked about. So I'm not saying anything kind of crazy here, that they are designed to be the respective leaders of their team, and they're kind of too good, and they're just weird, right? All of them, except for maybe Mewtwo X, even Mewtwo X a little bit, could receive some nerfs. The only one that I think is nerf please is Miraidon with Electro Drift. I think that's like the nerf please of the group. But I do think these all kind of fall into this gray area right here, because the game has essentially, I think foolishly, set up multiple, like they've set up two groups of Pokemon they need to balance. They need to balance every Pokemon in the game, and then they have this special cool secret group of Pokemon that they need to balance amongst themselves almost, because they're too good. So yeah, I would be happy if we saw Miraidon nerfs, even though I think the rest of them are very, very good. They all do fall into this weird gray area. I don't know what to do with them. Mimikyu, small buffs. If you did anything, you would buff Trick Room. Everything else I wouldn't touch. They might even nerf part of its kit. Like, I could see them nerf part of like the Shadow Sneak kit and buff Trick Room. I don't think that would be an insane choice. Zeraora, I feel like just never seems to creep into the meta super hard. It's a hard one to balance. Speedsters in general, a little tough. Like, just because a little too much and a Speedster all of a sudden is KOing everything, and a little too little and it does nothing. So yeah, this is like small buffs, or probably they're not touching it. Char, I would love to see buffs on Char. They would be small, but you could buff Char in like multiple ways. Same thing with Scyther. I think Scyther is just not a great Speedster. It's a Speedster essentially, and I just think you could make this like competitive with other Speedsters, and you don't. Absol, you could probably also see small Absol buffs, and that wouldn't be crazy. The biggest reason for Absol and Zeraora, like these two are kind of like hanging out with each other for this reason, is just that you don't get them played much, and the other Speedsters feel like they've kind of passed them by. Blastoise, I think you could buff this thing. I don't think it's as bad as it has fallen off, but it's fallen off so incredibly hard that I feel like when a Pokemon goes from being broken to unused, like that feels like we nerfed too much, right? Like, let's meet in the middle a little bit here and bring this thing back to prominence. Mime's a weird one. Mime's doing pretty good. I don't think they nerf Mime, but I also feel like they could buff the psychic part of Mime slightly, because like Mime went from the most broken thing, like one of the most broken metas we've ever had, to like not being seen much. I'd be fine if they don't touch Mime. I'd also be fine with small buffs. Gengar, such a hard one to balance. I don't know what you do with this. This is such a hard one to balance. I don't think they're gonna touch it. Hard one, really hard one. Machamp, I can see small buffs to Machamp. It doesn't need a lot. Wiggly, I think, is doing good. I don't think you need to mess with it too much. It's actually a lot stronger than, like, it's a lot stronger than I think the perception of it is. I think it's actually pretty dang solid. If I saw anything, it would be like small buffs, maybe even to its Unite move. Cram just got buffed. I don't know what you would do. Like, you could literally revert the buff, but I think Cram's fine. Candle's fine, maybe a slight buff. Pika's fine, maybe a slight buff. Dodrio's fine, it recently got nerfs. Talon's doing better, I think, than people would expect. And the meta is kind of doing okay for Talon from time to time. I don't think they need to mess with it too much at this point. Inteleon, you could still slightly nerf like some of its damage, but Inteleon I think is having a good time right now, and I don't want to ruin things for Inteleon here. Let's make this list a little boop, 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 boop. Shrink it a little bit so we can just see everything a little better. Slowbro, if you did anything, it would be a small nerf. Oh, it's got a battle pass coming. Oh, I hadn't even thought about the battle passes. This is getting a buff, isn't it? What are they gonna buff? I think they're gonna buff Slowbro. I didn't even think about that. Dang it. What are they gonna buff on this thing? I don't know. But I think they might. It's getting a really... did I say battle pass? I meant like a legendary hollower. It's getting insanely good hollower. If anything, they could probably revert the nerfs that they gave to Amnesia a little while back. Like kind of like meet in the middle on those nerfs and maybe mess with like telekinesis a little bit. A9's doing good. Don't touch it. Buzzwole is actually fine. I don't think they need to mess with it. Gyarados is fine. It's really good, but what are you going to do? Sableye. Sableye enters my gray area here. The tough thing with Sableye, and where's Greedent? I'll put Sableye and Greedent here. Greedent also recently got a buff, so I don't think we're going to see anything there. Greedent and Sableye are weird ones to balance because, okay, imagine this, right? Think about a Pokemon like Cinderace. You can look at Cinderace and say, it takes X amount of auto attacks for Cinderace to do 5,000 damage, right? So like they can calculate that out and go, this is how many auto attacks it takes Cinderace to do 5k damage. This is how many it takes to do 10k, etc. We could cut that down by 1 by buffing the numbers this amount. So now Cinderace gets a KO in 6 auto attacks as opposed to 7. And how does that change a battle, right? That's like one way of thinking about balance. Now let's talk about like Pokemon like Greedent and Sableye. So imagine you invade the enemy central area over and over and over again with Greedent or Sableye, or or any Pokemon that can do it. And specifically, they have buffed something like Greedent, like they've buffed its early game or they've buffed its sustain. They've just given it the ability to do this easier. The ramifications of that buff are a little harder to measure than the ramifications of Cinderace KOs things a little bit faster, right? You could see in a battle, hey, Cinderace is KOing things a little bit faster. Maybe it's a little too fast. This thing is wiping enemy teams. But now with Sableye and Greedent, you have to buff them, and then you have to go, all right, how do we know how much this changed? Because if you buff Greedent, and then it makes it so much easier for Greedent to sit in the enemy central area and deny the enemy a good level at Rayquaza. So their Cinderace or whatever is walking to Rayquaza at level 11 as opposed to 13 or 14. It's really hard to look at that and go, how much did we affect this, right? So I think that's why they're really tough to buff, is they could definitely use buffs, but they change the dynamic of games in such an interesting way that it's hard to see like how much they've done. Of course, you'll just see them like start winning more, and that will be one indicator, right? But they don't have as clear a line of like, this does too much damage. Now it's kind of like, this disrupts the game too much. Hard ones to change. We also recently saw a Greedent buff. If anything, maybe you could mess with Shadow Sneak on Sableye. Sylveon needs a nerf, for sure. Small, but it's an Eevee. Glaceon, I actually think Glaceon is crazy good, but I don't think they're going to touch it at all. Leafeon is probably like the most nerf of the group. It might not get the Eevee exception. Umbreon, I don't think they're touching. Espeon, I don't think they're touching. So the reason I made this Eevee exceptions tier is because I think all of these Pokemon are kind of too good, but they also are all Eevees, and they're all designed, they all like fall into the same design philosophy of really, really good early, getting their moves early, getting their Unite move early, and in general, I don't think we're going to see big changes for many of the Eevees. I think they kind of like that dynamic in this game. If anyone received a nerf, it would be Leafeon, even though Leafeon's a tough one. Good competitively, and a real hard Pokemon, I feel like, solo to get the same output. Clefable, I don't think they're messing with. Crustle, I don't think they're messing with. Like, Clefable is like, it's doing pretty good. It actually, I think, does better than people think. Crustle also, like, it's doing solid. They nerfed it, but it's fine. Dragonite, I don't think they're touching at all. I could see a small buff to Extreme Speed. I wouldn't mind it. Eldegoss, I don't see a situation where they mess with it unless they kind of buff Leaf Tornado. Dark Bear, I think, is kind of fine. It's weird because Water Bear, like Rapid Strike or Shifu, bad. Dark Bear actually, I think, is doing just fine. Blissey just got buffed. I don't think they mess with it at all. Lucario, I don't think they mess with Lucario at all, especially after, like, now that it counters Phalanx, I think it kind of has a little bit of like a new life to it. I don't think they mess with it. Scissor, I don't think they mess with. Meowscarada, I don't think they mess with. Both, like, Scissor, it got buffs a little while back and it's doing a lot better. It's always going to run into the problem of sometimes there's a meta that you don't want to brawl into, like Tyranitar. And then Meowscarada, it did get a slight nerf, and I don't think it even needed it really, but I don't think they mess with Meow too much. I really don't see that. Blaziken, I wouldn't touch Blaziken, but it does have the Battle Pass. Maybe we could see a buff. I don't think there's a reality where we see a nerf here. Zoroark could probably use a nerf, but it's a tough one because it's a really high skill Pokemon. But they still have not really nerfed it. Like, in comparison, they've nerfed Dodrio like 3 or 4 times, and they nerfed Zoroark once on the Night Slash build. So it's a hard one. Azu, I don't think they're going to mess with Azu. They just did a little while back. Guardy, I think is doing pretty good. Don't mess with it. I mean, let's be honest. I hate to say it, but I think Trevenant is, like, it's the best defender in the game. And I do think they could probably mess with it a little. I don't want them to because I actually love Trev, but I do think it's a little too good. Hoopa, I don't think they mess with Hoopa too much. They've buffed it a few times. I don't think they're gonna, well, the only thing I could think is they buffed Trick, but they did not mess with Shadow Ball. I wonder if we see a Shadow Ball buff. If we see anything with Hoopa, it'd be a Shadow Ball buff. I'll put it here for Shadow Ball because it's just really not used, but we'll see. And I don't think they nerf it, really. I don't know. It is pretty dang good. Snorlax, I don't think they touch. It's just kind of a generically good tank. Comfey is in the gray area. It's like, I want them to nerf it with fire, but I don't think they're going to. It's just like so hard to balance. It's in the game for a specific reason, right? Like, Comfey is in this game so that players who are not as proficient can do well. So I get it, and I understand the reason for wanting that in this game. Just trying to adjust this here so you guys can see it a little better. But at the same time, like, I don't know. It's way too good. It empowers things that are broken way too much. You always see it creep back into the meta when something's not balanced. That's just a sign of this. It's just a bad design. Phalanx. Phalanx could use a small nerf, but it just got, like, Cerulege just came out, right? But Phalanx is a really recent release. I don't think they're going to mess with it really at all, but it could use nerfs. Zarina, no, I don't think they're going to touch it. It's getting play in Japan, and like high skill, it's still really good. Mamo, I don't think they're gonna mess with Mamo, even though you could see a slight buff. I like if you change its leveling by 1, like brought it down to 8, or along with the dragons and stuff. I think that'd be reasonable. Mew, they just nerfed. I don't think they're gonna nerf it again. Sword, they just buffed. I don't think we're gonna see sword buffs again. Maybe it could use them slightly. Delphox, Delphox is just good. I don't think they mess with Delphox. Like, why would you? Yeah, it's pretty good, and they just nerfed Fire Spin. And now we have Cerulege. Just got released, meaning I don't think they touch it at all. If you did do something to Ceruledge, I would like a buff for Bitter Blade, because I kind of think Bitter Blade's not very good. I would also like its Unite move. Not change, like the way it aims is super annoying. Like the targeting on it's really slow, and the way it, like, you have to kind of whip it around towards things. I hate the targeting of it on Switch. I would love to see a change for that. I don't think they mess with Ceruledge at all. I mean, you always get these new Pokemon that release and then they get like a slight tune-up. This feels pretty quick for that to happen. So I don't know if we do see a patch this week. I don't know if we see a Ceruledge buff, but things I would like to see buffs on. Our buff zone for sure. Lots of small boofs up here I think would be very solid. Slowbro I worry about. I'm just putting it there because I think something could happen. Nerfs: Leafeon, Zoroark, Phalanx, Tyranitar, Miraidon, Trevenant, as well as like a lot of the gray area could definitely receive nerfs. Then we also have like Greedent and Sableye there, who could kind of receive buffs, but they're really hard to balance. We also could see Blaziken. Like, Blaziken has a battle pass, so I could see it getting a slight buff, even though I don't think it really needs it. I don't know if there are any others that I would see like big changes for, right? I think a lot of the meta is pretty solid. Mime's like second moveset's a little whatever. Blissey's a little too powerful, but it's always a little too powerful. Eldegoss's Leaf Tornado could always use some tweaking, right? But I think there you go. That's going to be our Nerf and buff tier list, and now I have to put a Pokemon in the God tier. I don't think you're going to be surprised by this. It's Tyranitar. I actually don't think Tyranitar is the most broken thing in the meta, but I do think player sentiment would lead you to say that it's one of the most broken things in the game. And it's hard to deal with in a uncoordinated fashion. So coordinated, we saw a lot of teams at NAIC actually deal with Tyranitar pretty well. They had a harder time against Phalanx and stuff like that. I think Phalanx is probably more deserving of nerfs, but they both are deserving of nerfs, and Tyranitar has just been the subject of the meta for a while. The only other God tier one is Miraidon. Miraidon just kind of coming back to the game, like, oh, hey, what's up, guys? I'm back. And it's still like Electro Drift, Parabolic Charge is unbelievably busted. Like, if I had another Pokemon up here, it would be Miraidon, and I think that would be very fair as well. So there you go. There's our Nerf buff tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments. What did we get right? What did I get wrong? What do you think should be changed? What do you think I'm like advocating for that is probably not ideal? I would love to hear from you. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. I will see you all next time. Once again, thanks to Warcraft Rumble, and thank you all for watching. I love you.